Well, one of the most important aspects of theater is blocking. Ever since I was in the 5th grade, I thrive on being on stage. I know it's surprising for some of you, but I love acting. I love expressing myself. And in 5th grade, I got to be in a little skit for the school, and I got to be Pa McCoy, and my friend got to be, Pa Hatfield, and we got to act the Hatfields and McCoy on stage. And it was during those times where I learned, pretty much where the positions of the stage are. I learned you're not supposed to talk to people like this, because then you're showing your backside to half the group. I learned you do one of these pivot stages as you talk, and you start learning blocking and where to go and what has an impact. And I continue to do that up into college. And one of the biggest ones is how the use of downstage and upstage is used. And you might have heard the phrase, you don't want to upstage your person unless it's, intentional. Because when you stand downstage, usually all the attention is drawn to you, everybody in the back here. But when you upstage somebody and you back up, now everyone's in front of you, they all turn, and suddenly none of them matters. And it serves a dynamic purpose. And especially when you start from upstaging and then you walk to the downstage, all eyes are on you as you advance down the stage. Well, what happens here today is God truly upstages everyone else around. Because when Ezekiel starts writing here in Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 4, all eyes are on these creatures that he calls these living creatures. And when you hear their description, you're like, whoa, can there be anyone as cool as these creatures? Well, yes, because they come out and they're sort of on display, and then God shows up and he completely upstages anything else going on. So let's look there in Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 4. And he says, as I looked up, behold, a stormy wind came out of the north, and a great cloud with brightness all around it, and fire flashing forth continually. And in the midst of the fire, as it were, gleaming metal. And from the midst of it came the likeness of 4 living creatures. And this was their appearance. They had a human likeness, but each one had 4 faces, and each of them had 4 wings. Their legs were straight, and the soles of their feet were like the soles of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like burnished bronze. Could you imagine if you were Ezekiel here? I mean, you're there down by the river, and suddenly this thing starts playing out. And suddenly these 4 creatures, and you're trying to describe this, and they have 4 faces and 4 wings. And it says there in verse 8, under their wings, on their 4 sides, they had human hands. And the 4 had their faces and wings thus. Their wings touched one another. Each one of them went straight forward without turning as they went. And as for the likeness of their faces, each had a human face. The 4 had the face of a lion on the right side. The 4 had the face of an ox on the left side. And the 4 had the face of an eagle. And such were their faces, and their wings were spread out above. Each creature had 2 wings, each which touched the wings of another, while the 2 covered their bodies. Does anyone really have any idea what's going on here? Look, what does it mean with their touching? So the wings are touching. Okay, we're trying to describe this. And you really get that feel as Ezekiel's writing this, like, does Ezekiel even grasp what he's seeing? I don't think so. I think if you imagine it, he's trying to put this incredible image that he's seeing into words. And we find out in Ezekiel chapter 10, a few chapters later, when we see this scene again, that we encounter them, and who these creatures are, or they are considered the cherubim of God, which is a type of angel. And the description of these cherubim also exists in Revelation chapter 4. And there it says that they surround the glory of God and repeatedly proclaim, "Holy, holy, holy." In Revelation chapter 6, it is recorded that these cherubim have 6 wings. Verse before mentioned here in Ezekiel 1. Does this show the Bible isn't accurate? And I say, well, no. Because you've heard, when a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. So maybe the bell's rung a few times. Joking. I think it just shows that all of this is incredibly hard for Ezekiel to put into words what he's saying. And that's saying, could there be other kinds? Could they be? Well, yes. So none of this disproves anything. It just shows that there is a lot of variety in the angelic ranks, just like humanity. But what's fascinating with the use of the wings is they're constantly mentioned as covering themselves or touching. I sort of got the sense that they were almost trying to shield Ezekiel a little bit from what's about to happen. It's almost like, you know how when your kid is standing there and the sun's really bright, you'll just sort of put your hand a little bit just to block the shade a little bit. I sort of got that sense that, yes, they're covering themselves, but the idea was that they're actually sort of shielding what's going on below. Because what's coming is incredible. You also, I get this sense, if you're familiar with the Ark of the Covenant, and the Ark of the Covenant was a golden box, and on top of the golden box were 2 cherubim. And it's often viewed of as these cherubim on this golden box, their wings are touching as it sits on top of the Ark of the Covenant. And it was commonly said that on this golden box and these cherubim that sit on it, these golden cherubim, that the God, when he would come and visit Moses and other people, he would make a visit and he would sit up on top of the 2 cherubim. So even in the midst of the Ark of the Covenant, there was this idea of the cherubim guarding and being with God at all times. And as you know, the Ark of the Covenant was carried by 4 priests. They would drive a post through each side, 4 or 2 up front, 2 behind. And I get that sense here are these cherubim, they're coming, 1 on each side, 1 on each corner, and it's like they're carrying the throne of God wherever he wants to go, they are going. So this image sort of translates to how the Ark of the Covenant, and which is why I think Ezekiel, we asked that question last week, God, why are you here? I think this was all what was coming through his mind is God has left the Ark, and he has come to visit the refugee Israelites over there in the Babylonian Empire. And let's keep going, though, okay? Because we haven't even gotten to the main event yet. And each one went straight forward. Wherever the Spirit would go, they went without turning as they went. As for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, like the appearance of torches moving to and fro among the living creatures, and the fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning. And the living creatures darted to and fro like the appearance of a flash of lightning. Now, as I looked at the living creatures, I saw a wheel on the earth beside the living creatures, one for each of the 4 of them. And as for the appearance of the wheels and their construction, their appearance was like a gleaming of beryl, and the 4 had the same likeness, their appearance and construction being as if it were a wheel within a wheel. I have no idea what that even means. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, is it like 2 wheels like this? Or Two wheels like this. I mean, is it like a really fancy unicycle? I have no idea. And here's Ezekiel. I don't think he had any idea what he was seeing either. You can just imagine, I don't know what this is. And they went in all four directions without turning as they went. And the rims were tall and awesome, and the rims of all four were full of eyes all around. That's weird. And when the living creatures went, their wheels went beside them. And when the living creatures rose from the earth, the wheels rose. So I imagine this, and I'm not going to die on this because, like I said, nobody really has any idea what's going on here. But here's Ezekiel faced with this incredible image. I imagine that the wheels, the wheels within the wheels are like the cherubims. I don't know, unicycle. That's literally how I imagined it. I'm not saying it's right. I just always imagine that the wheels were the method of transportation used. Is that saying that, the angels couldn't do it themselves? No, it's just how I was viewing it in my head. It's like the angels have come, they have stepped off their rides, they are holding the throne of God, and their wheels are there. That's just how I imagined it in my head, all right? And so much time has been spent with what's the significance of the wheels. I don't know if we really can say what the significance of the wheels are, because it doesn't really tell us. I think Ezekiel, and just the image that's being presented, it is just supposed to blow our minds. Because I don't think Ezekiel knows what's going on either. But you do see there in Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 20, that wherever the Spirit wanted to go, they went, and the wheels rose along with them, for the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. So it seems like Ezekiel is saying there's some sort of connection between the wheels and the living creatures, and that's why I think more or less that it's their ride. How does it work? No idea. But it's what I think. See, because when they went, these went, and when they stood, these stood. And when these rose from the earth, the wheels rose with them. For the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheel. So he seems to think that there's a connection between these two. And that's why I imagine the Ark of the Covenant here. You have the priest carrying the throne of God, okay? Like a king coming, and we've all seen the movies and stuff where some king or queen is riding on the chair. And of course you have these strong, strapping men with bulging muscles carrying, until the king or queen wants to stop, and then they stop. That's what I'm sort of picturing here is what's going on. Is the queen is like, all right, time to stop, and they get off, and they stop, and their rides are there. And it says in verse 22, over the heads of the living creatures, there was this likeness of an expanse, which we'll get to here in a second, shining like awe-inspiring crystal, spread out above their heads. And under the expanse, their wings were stretched out straight, one toward another, and each creature had two wings covering its body. So, how many of you guys are impressed so far with the image of the angels? Okay, pretty mind-boggling. Well, let me tell you though, we shouldn't be. Because they're nothing compared to what we're about to describe. See, when I read it, I was like, these angels are incredible. Wow. And then you keep reading and you're like, these angels are lame. God is so much cooler. See, because the Bible, it's not about angels. See, these cherubim and all of their brilliance are just the introduction of the show. They are just like that fancy limo carrying the movie star or the politician. That car matters little as soon as the individual steps out of the car, right? Does everyone take a bunch of pictures of the limo, on the red carpet events? No, I don't think we've ever seen those. We take pictures of the movie stars, the politician, whoever it is coming out. That's the main event. And that's what it's like. Yeah, your car's nice, But now we're at the main event. These 4 cherubim are going to get upstaged. And I don't think they would have it any other way. Because what's going to play out here is one of the most incredible, descriptive portions of the Bible when it comes to describing what God looks like. And so what I'm going to do is we're all going to do something a little different this morning. And I tried doing this here earlier in the week. I tried to do it myself. And that's what we're going to do here today. So here in a minute, in a few seconds or whatever, I'm going to ask you to all close your eyes. And you're going to keep your eyes closed for most of the rest of the sermon. Because I don't want what I do to distract from the image I want us to get from what God's word says. So here in a sec, we're going to close our eyes. I am going to, if you're like, well, how do I know you're reading the Bible right? You can check me later. But I am, ESV. I'll be Ezekiel 1:24 on. And we are just going to close our eyes. And we're just going to try and imagine what Ezekiel is saying and trying to describe. And then I'll tell you to open it, and we're all going to drive it home, which I think will be really great. So I promise I won't even look up to see if you're peeking, okay? If you're one of those people who are like, I don't have to do jack, fine, whatever, okay? I went to a church where I was like, let's play a game. And one of the ladies is like, I don't play games in church. All right. I don't know where to go with that, but there we go. So if you don't want to close your eyes, don't worry. I'm not even going to look up, okay? We're all going to try to do this together. But I think you'll really appreciate the image as you just allow your imagination, something that adults don't like to use, allow our imagination just to really capture this. So I'm not looking, so I don't know if you're peeking. I don't know, and that's okay. So everyone, let's try to, close our eyes here. And I want you to imagine, while your eyes are closed, that you've just witnessed and you've just seen these 4 living creatures, these angels that have just come and their wings have stopped flapping and they're standing and they're looking at you. You can't escape their eyes. And it's almost like they are God's constant bodyguard. And one mistake, one false thought, and they will destroy you before you realize what happened. And you've gotten a little scared. What are you supposed to do here? And you get brave enough and you start looking up. And Ezekiel describes it. He begins to describe this expanse. This space, and it's hard to put words to it, but it's not open, but it's filled with something, and you can't put words, you really can't put words to it. But he says in verse 22, he says, over the heads of the living creatures, there was this likeness of an expanse. And this expanse that you see is shining like awe-inspiring crystal. It's clear. It's not solid like a crystal or a diamond, something firm, but it's like a crystal has been turned into a vapor, where it's just flowing and open. It's reflecting light. and it's spread out above their heads. And as you get braver, you keep looking up into it. And you realize that what you're seeing, as it says in Ezekiel 1:28, you are seeing the glory of the Lord. See, the fire and the angels, their brightness is nothing now. It looks sort of dull compared to what you're looking at. And as you keep imagining there, this crystal, this sort of crystal vapor, it's starting to emanate light, pure, unstoppable light. And if you're having a hard time imagining that, I want you to think back to a hot summer day where there are no clouds in the sky. And in order to accomplish anything in that light and heat, you need a hat and sunglasses. And this light is so bright, it's like reflecting off of your house and the ground, or if you're at a swimming pool, where it just feels like it is hitting you everywhere. Seeing the light that is emanating from this expanse, there is no shadows. This shadow's not behind you. It is not beside you. There is no shadow. Now, I want you to imagine the sunlight gets brighter and brighter, and you would feel the intensity and the heat, but in the midst of God, as it just gets brighter and there's nothing there, you're not being consumed by it. You are just in it. And it is like your every thought, your mind, everything is completely exposed, like this light is shining through you. There's no escaping it. And it says in Ezekiel 1:24, and when they went, Ezekiel says, I heard the sound of their wings like the sound of many waters. Imagine a waterfall. And it says, like the sound of the Almighty, like the sound of an army marching. And these wings, and they stopped and let down their wings. And everything is quiet. See, the light has gotten brighter. These angels have stopped flapping. Everything is silent. It says in 125, and there came a voice from above the expanse over their heads. And when they stood still, they let down their wings. And you're drawn to this voice and its power. That even though the angels, it is so loud and their wings flapping sounds like a mighty army in a rushing waterfall as they flap and carry and do their work, that God's voice speaks through it. And he is heard no matter what noise is going on, and the angels stop immediately. No hesitation. And it is silence. God's voice is so powerful. He commands these four living creatures, and they seem to give him all their awe and reverence and respect. And when you hear this voice, it's like, I imagined it like deep and powerful. And it would be scary, except for there's just this melody to it. And it's hard to describe, but every word that comes out of his voice is like life. And then he keeps describing there. And he says, and Ezekiel looks up, and he's getting braver now because nothing's happened to him yet. And he says in 26, and above the expanse, as he looks up to see what is speaking, he sees the likeness of a throne, an appearance like a sapphire. So look up, and imagining looking up as your eyes are closed, and the chair you see has this blue hint to it, this hue. And it's like amplifying all the light that's going on. And you just see the likeness of a throne. There's really no words to completely describe it. You're like, as I look up and see it, that looks like a chair. And you get brave and you keep looking a little bit higher. And you see the likeness, something that looks almost human, has a human appearance to it. And upward from what had the appearance of his waist, Ezekiel says, I saw as it were gleaming metal. And this likeness has the appearance of fire enclosed all around. And downward from what had the appearance of his waist, I saw that it were the appearance of fire, and there was brightness all around him. And I want you to imagine as you're looking up at this likeness of a man sitting on this chair, that you know full well is the God and his glory shining through it, the fire itself. And since it's sort of like you have this crystal effect, and the thing, it's like the fire is wrapped up in him and outside of him, and the fire light is being magnified upon himself and outward. He seems to be wrapped in it. And I'm not talking like red and orange fire. I'm talking when fire gets incredibly hot, or it's almost white, and has blues. And you know that just touching him, you would be completely and beyond consumed. And this fire sort of wrapped up in him and outside of him, and there's no escaping it. And then there in verse 28, it says, and like the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud on the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness all around. See, and as you stare deeper and try to have your poor mind understand what you're witnessing, as you're staring into this light, you realize that this light isn't just white. It's not yellow. Oh no. It is like light is being completely refracted and shaped and controlled. And you don't see just white, but you see reds and oranges, yellows. You've seen blues and purples, and it's all wrapping within itself and spreading out. It's like the fire itself is like a rainbow. It is you. There is nothing to comprehend. Your mind feels like it is going to pop. How can something be this beautiful? How can something be this incredible? And he says, such was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell on my face, and I heard the voice of one speaking. You guys can open your eyes. Now I want you to sit with this image. See, hundreds of years later, the Apostle John was able to see the human incarnation of Jesus made flesh. And John said this, no one, and this is John 1:18, John says, no one has seen God, the only God. No one has seen God. He says, who is at the Father's side, he has made him known. And what you just imagined was Jesus Christ on his throne in all of his glory, coming to Ezekiel. Now, as it says in Paul says in verse 5 of chapter 2 in Philippians, it says, "Have this mind among yourselves, which is in Christ Jesus, who though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men, and being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross." That Jesus was willing to die for you and for me. That Jesus was willing to die for you and for me. I could only imagine what the angels thought. I'm going to turn something down. I feel like we're going to blow up. Okay. Can't imagine what his 4 angels thought when Jesus left and stepped down off the throne and became a man. Could you fathom that? Jesus, why? Why would you do that? And all Jesus had to say was, I love him. So I know in the midst of all that's going on around you, all that's happening, and all the worldly troubles and the problems we have every single day, we can just stop. Say, Jesus came to earth for me. Next week, we're going to see what God says to Ezekiel. But as we started Ezekiel, I wanted to leave that image firmly in our head. Like Ezekiel said, there is no words to describe our awesome God. And here we saw that the Israelites' awesome God was willing to leave his home, come and make a visit because he cares for his people. And that God is the same then and the same now, and he loves us just the same. And so this week, when life becomes a little overwhelming, just think of that image in your head. He was willing to come and rescue you. Let's pray. God, we love you. We are just in awe. There is no words. It's almost silly when we struggle and we don't rest in you. We're so thankful that you are patient with us, and you love us. And God, right now, Jesus, you are sitting on that throne again. You are working in our life, and you are exercising firm and complete control over what's going here on earth, and everything is working just like you want it to. And we long for the day where you step off that throne again and you come back to earth and you wrong all the rights. You right all the wrongs. I can't believe I just said that. God, you are good and you are lovely. We praise you this morning. Amen. Well, thank you.